Well, hello. I'm going to wait just a few moments. I know we have people coming from Instagram and Facebook and those that are already in the group, so I'm going to wait a few moments. I'm a little early. Last time I was a teeny bit late because of technical difficulties, so I wanted to log on early this time, but I want to give you guys some time to jump in here to the first of our three-part series, our unschooling workshop series. And today um, is our first one. And so I'm going to give you guys some time to log in and get situated, get your favorite drink, and curl up, and let's have a conversation. I'm going to wait just a little bit longer before we get started. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. For some reason, I can't see the viewers in the location that I normally see them, but that is okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. And welcome! Excited to welcome everyone back that is a part of our community, our Homeschool Gone Wild unschooling community here on Facebook. And I want to welcome all of our new members and those that just recently joined to be a part of this live conversation in this three-part series. So welcome, welcome, welcome. For those that are new, when you get the chance, I ask you to go up to the top of the page to the pinned post, welcome post, to learn more about me, about the group, the purpose of the group, and all of that good stuff, and all the rules and things of that nature. So you'll become familiar with how we operate and what we can offer you and what you can offer us, right? So welcome to everybody. I wanted to do a three-part series because on the three topics that I get the most questions for, right? And so those questions are, how do I transition to unschooling? This scares me to death. And then secondly, what is layered learning? You talk about layered learning all the time. What is that? That's what we're going to do next week. And then the third week, we're going to talk about unschooling with differently abled children, what some may consider special needs or learning challenges, whatever terminology you might use. We're going to talk about how to unschool and how to help your kids thrive no matter what their challenge is. So those are the 3 weeks, the next 3 weeks. But today is how to transition smoothly to unschooling, right? But before we get into that, I'm going to share a little bit more about myself. I am Carla Marie Williams. I'm the founder of this group, Homeschool Gone Wild Unschooling Community, and this group was named after my very first book. You may have read it. If not, it's the picture at the top of the page are the I've written 10 books, but those are the 3 books that are related to homeschooling and unschooling. So, but all of my books are for moms. And you can check all those out on my website, www.carlamariewilliams.com. And you'll learn all about me. But I am the wife of almost 26 years to the love of my life, and I am the mom to 6 inspired unschoolers, 2 of which we've been learning at home for 15 years. The last 11 have been unschooling. And 2 of our children launched in 2020. 3 of them will be be done in December, and launching, say January of 2024. So only 5 months away, 5. And then I only have one schooler left, and he's 14. So we have a couple years left with him. So that's a little bit about me. We have enjoyed this lifestyle, and we have enjoyed the freedom and the awe-inspiring moments of learning that we would have never found in a textbook, a workbook, or in a course. But my children have learned and grown, and the ones that are launching into the world are launching into the world doing something that they love, and that's what's important to us. And hopefully that's why you're here, because you want that too, right? No matter what you're doing, whether you are traditionally homeschooling, unschooling, whatever it is that you're doing, I'm hoping that what you get out of these particular workshops, these 3 workshops, is that you can loosen the reins. You can give your child some control. You can give them the freedom to be who they are, to pursue the things that they love and the things that set their heart on fire, and watch them bloom and launch into the world doing something that they love, right? So I'm not saying you have to be an unschooler to benefit from the information that I'm going to share. But what you do have to do is be willing to let go of some things so that they can flourish and they have a say in the things that that you're doing on a regular basis, right? Because you want them to be confident in who they are and the gifts that they have to bless the world with. So without further ado, let's get started, and let's talk about making a smooth transition to unschooling. Now, this is not going to be an extremely long workshop. And I'm going to leave about 15 minutes on the end for questions. So we'll probably go, to about 9:15ish, and then from 9:15 to 9:30ish, because I talk a lot, we'll do some questions. All right. So, what is a smooth transition? Smooth means that it works for you, not necessarily how it worked for me, but that it works for you and your kids. When something is smooth, it may be smooth for one person and not another. So when I say a smooth transition, it means that it works for your family. You found your flow. You know what you're doing, and you're comfortable with how things are going. That's what I mean by smooth. So I don't want you to think that there is a specific formula to what smooth is. Smooth is what works for you. So I'm going to talk about different ways that you can look at transitioning to a more loosened, more of a routine than a rigid schedule, more of an interest-led approach than a parent-dictated every moment of the day approach kind of thing. So that's what I'm here to kind of share with you, what things may work for you as you are trying to change how you approach learning. Okay? So to tell you a little bit about how we transitioned to unschooling or interest-led learning, it was actually kind of on mistake, but not really. So what happened was, I had 3 children, and we were homeschooling very traditionally, and we hated every minute of it. But I, as the parent, did not know that the homeschool world was as vast, and that there were so many ways of doing this. And so I just did what I knew. There was one person that I knew in my city, and I know there were more, but there was one person I personally knew that was homeschooling, because the city that we lived in at the time, it was not common. Now, the city I live in now, everybody's doing it, so to speak. But so I just ordered all the curriculum she had. She even had her kids in uniforms. I didn't copy that part, but everything that she did, I copied, because that's all I knew. And we were miserable. We hated it. So it was important that I found out what needed to be done. And let me tell you, we did that for 3.5 years. Yes, I know. So, but I didn't know any different. And so when I joined Facebook, I began to join homeschooling groups. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. This is kind of different. There are lots of different ways to homeschool. There are lots of different ways to learn at home with your kids. And I don't have to follow these checklists. I don't have to follow anybody else's rules. I'm in charge. Like the bell started going off like, wait a second. I get to curate my kids' learning experience, and no one else can tell me how to do that. You know, your state may say this is what your kids need to learn, or teach your kids. You know, like my state is just like teach your kids. I live in Michigan. And there are a lot of states like that. Then you have states that say teach your kids these things. But in no way do they tell you how and what resources and how they go about learning those things. And that's the beauty of it. The learning at home with your kids is that you get to determine how you do it. And when that light bulb went off for me, I was like, wow. I get to get creative here, and I get to cater my children's learning to who they are and how they learn and what they love. And that was the most beautiful revelation to me in that moment. But what happened, we didn't like what we were doing. I had been reading, came across some unschooling stuff, and I was like, these people are a little off their rocker. This is crazy. Not interested. But I kept it in the back of my mind because it sounded so appealing, and I just wanted that freedom that they seemed that they were experiencing. But that was scary to me, to even think that I would drop all of these checklists and things and just be like, okay, kids, go learn. You know, that's what it sounded like to me. But I kept it in the back of my head, kept reading about it, kept watching videos, and then we decided to adopt 3 more children. And I knew it was about March of 2013. And I knew, okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to stop everything that we're doing, and we're going to bond as a family of 6 or a family of 8, 6 children. And then we will decide what we're going to do in the fall. So we took from March, you know what? So it was unintentional deschooling basically, because we just stopped and just became a family of 8. Right? So we just focused on that. But what was important is that my husband and I began to see our children learn things that we didn't initiate. And we began to see them teach each other things that we didn't initiate, things that would have never been in a workbook or a curriculum, but they were learning and they were growing and they were happy. They were happy. I mean, oh my gosh, when you see kids happy to learn, where do I sign up, right? And so what we began to see was what we were reading about and watching before. We were determined not to allow, you know, the parenting aspect to infiltrate our lives. We were just going to pursue it in the learning realm. But what ended up happening is that the more we invited it into our home school, so to speak, it began to permeate other areas of our life, other rules and stipulations, and just you can't do this, you can't. All of those things started not to make any sense anymore. And so that's when we became a little bit more radical, to the point where we allowed it to permeate even into our parenting. And I can't imagine anything different because it has worked for us. But that's kind of how we transitioned to it. So it was kind of deschooling on mistake. And when we noticed that they were learning and they were growing, my husband and I said, you know what? We're not going to stop a good thing. We're just going to keep going on this road and see where it leads us. And if it didn't work out, then we'll do something different. But it was working. And now 11 years later, again, we homeschooled for 15 and a half years. 11 years of that has been unschooling. And I'm about to have launched the 5th child. So it has worked miracles in our life. And, you know, it just came from us humbling ourselves, being willing to address, you know, our own issues that kept learning in a box. So that's what we're going to talk about. Who is involved in this decision regarding, you know, transitioning to unschooling? Or just changing what you're doing, changing how you're doing it. It may not be unschooling. It may just be, you know, maybe you're extremely rigid and you want to do Charlotte Mason, or whatever the situation is. Who's involved in this decision? You're involved. If you are married, it's your spouse that's involved. And obviously, without a doubt, it's your children involved, right? And so you have all of those moving parts that have to be on the same page for this to work. And so A lot of times I have a lot of women come to me. I am gung-ho. I'm excited. I want to do this. My kids are excited, but my husband is like, stop the press. What about this? And what about that? And we'll talk about that in a minute, all the what ifs. But it's important to check in with everyone that is involved and their comfort level and figure out a happy medium. So it is important, if you are married, to keep peace in your home. So I would never tell a person to go against something that their spouse is vehemently against, right? I would never do that, because to me, more than anything, you want your children to be in a home with peace and harmony, right? So you don't want to upset that apple cart. And so what's important is that you both figure out what your needs are, what it is that you really want to see accomplished with your children, and figure out a way to do that that will make both people comfortable, because you both love your children. You both want the best for your children. And so never feel like the person that doesn't want what you want doesn't love your kids. You know that's not true. So so that's one of the things you have to think about first. You know, who is involved in this decision, and in what the changes that I want to make in my homeschool, and how can we all get along? And how can we all transition in a way that doesn't scare the person to death, right? So keep those things in mind. So there's 3 ways to approach this. 3 ways. And I'll tell you, I'm kind of a cold turkey girl. That's the first way. Cold turkey. Stop what you're doing and change directions, right? That's me. That is me all the way. And I can probably tell you 15 different examples in my life where I have just stopped and pivoted. And that's just how I've always loved to do it, you know. That's just who I am. That's my personality. My husband is also that way. And so it works well, because we don't have that rift between, wait, we're both, let's do it. So that worked for us. And it may work for you. You might be that person that's just like, I hate what we're doing so much that I just cannot take one more page out of that workbook. I am going to burn it, right? So if that's you, that's okay. That's okay. That's exactly how I was. So when we did that, we stopped and we never went back. And we never doubted I won't say we never doubted ourselves, because that would be a lie. That would be a lie for anyone, right? But we just stopped and pivoted, and that's how it worked out for us. And we decided that we were going to be confident in our own ability to discern the learning and the changes that we as parents have to make. Because I'll be honest with you, it's harder for the parent to transition to unschooling than it is the children. And I'm not surprised by that, because most of us as parents grew up in a very traditional environment that told us what learning looked like. And one thing that we have to kind of wash out of our brains, or out of our psyche, so to speak, is that learning can look so many different ways, right? And, learning doesn't have to have a time of day, or a day of the week, or a season of the year, or, our brains don't turn on at 7 a.m. and turn off at 3. They don't turn off on the weekend, or turn off during summer or Christmas break. We're just thinking and growing and learning all the time. And when we open our minds up to what learning looks like in all of its different forms, and that could be, depending upon the child, very different from another one of your children. When we open ourselves up to that, we're on our way. But as long as we stick learning in this little box and say, okay, from 8 to 3, Monday through Friday, August through May, this is when we learn. Because what that does is that tells our children that learning, living, and play are 3 different things. When really we can learn, live, and pray, and play, I said pray, that too, all that mixed up together in a beautiful, fruit salad. Just all the good ingredients mixed up together, where you almost don't even recognize one from the other, because the learning is happening while you're playing, the learning is happening while you're living, and you're just living a lifestyle of learning with your kids. And it's not necessarily teaching them, it's being a coach, being a co-pilot, so to speak, or a partner on their learning journey. And so those are the bells that have to go off for parents, is that learning doesn't look a certain way. And if we can wrap our minds around that, then we are halfway there. And then I always tell people, deschooling is important. When we were doing traditional learning, before we transitioned, we did deschool, right? It was on mistake. But had we not had that time in between, it would have been confusing for our children. We weren't there yet. Mentally, we were not there to embrace the next step or the next season of what our learning journey would look like. And so deschooling can look different for everyone, but it is a period of time where you are focusing more on relationship and restructuring what learning looks like in your mind, what you want your learning environment to look like, so that when you move and transition into that, it's smoother, instead of just a sharp cutoff and starting something else the next day or the next week. You need time. You need time to get to know your kids, to watch them, to observe them, to really see what they're into and how they learn, not how they operate when every moment of their day is dictated, but how they naturally learn and consume information. You can only do that if you stand back and you watch, right? So very important. That's what's going to have to happen in order for the transition to be smooth. You can't just stop one thing and the next day start the other. You need that deschooling period. Please, 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 if you don't hear anything else, that is important. And how long it is can depend on how long it takes to get all of that stinking thinking and all the checklists and what everybody else says they have to know and do at what age and what stage. Once you get all that out, you're well on your way to being able to embrace how each of your children learn differently and what learning looks like for them. Okay? Have 6 children, all of them consume information differently, and none of it is good or bad. It's just different. It's just different. But we have to be able to pick up on those cues and those clues. The only way we can do that is if we stand back and we stop trying to control everything and see how they learn naturally. That gives us what we need to be able to help them and be that partner in crime, so to speak. So make sure that you're deschooling in between. Make sure that you work on what learning looks like, reframing that. If you need, read, get the resources that you need, do whatever you can do to reframe your mind when it comes to that, and you will have a smooth transition. So again, there are 3 ways to approach it. Cold turkey, that was me, right? You may be me too, but I was a cold turkey girl. Number 2, drop everything except non-negotiables. Now, in the very, very beginning, before we dropped everything, my husband was stuck on math. He was like, you can drop everything else, but math, we need to do math. We did that for a couple months in the beginning, and then and we picked it back up later, but I'll explain that later with teenagers. He was stuck on that. And so if you feel, or your spouse feels, or even your kids may feel, sometimes kids may have strong feelings about certain topics that they, don't want to drop. But again, what you have to think about is unschooling is following your child's lead. So if you have a child that is interested in a writing curriculum and they have chosen it and they want to do it, let them do it. Just let them do it when and how they want to do it. Let them have the freedom of how they approach it. Let them pick the resource. Let them pick when and if they want to do it. That's when you know that you've given them, the freedom in that area. So, but number 2 is drop everything except non-negotiables. You may say, I am confident in every other area, but I have to have math or I have to have writing. Or you might have a child that has special needs, and we'll handle that in our third workshop. But and you feel like they need a curriculum for reading because they want to, they're desiring to, and you see the frustration, so you want to help them. So things like that. You may not want to drop because you're trying to help them do something that they desire to do, which is read. Um, and then letting everything else go, right? And then you have number three, dropping one thing at a time. So you may say, okay, we're going to drop history. We're just going to, do read alouds, and we'll watch things together, or we're going to drop science. And then next we're going to drop this. Then next we're going to drop that. And, likely math will be the last one. That's usually most people. But transitioning depends on what your comfort level is. Again, you have some people that were just like, we're done with all of the world's expectations of what and how we're supposed to do this. We're done. Two, I want to keep math and writing, but we drop everything else. Three, I can only do one thing at a time safely. It just scares me, right? So you have to determine, who are you? Who are you? Who is your spouse? What is your comfort level? How can you do this? Because I guarantee no matter where you fall on this continuum, 1, 2, or 3, you will get there. But if you try to be cold turkey and you're really a number 3, you're going to crash and burn, and then you're going to say this doesn't work. When really it could work if you worked with who you're working with, which is yourself and your spouse and your comfort level. Okay? So you just have to know where you are. You have to know where you are, what you're comfortable with, and go at a pace that is comfortable for you, if you are married, your spouse, and your children. And some people may have other thoughts about this. They may think everybody should be cold turkey, but I think that's very short-sighted to assume that everybody's comfort level is at 100% when they start out, and that's not always true. So you have to do what's comfortable for you, and you have to just take your time. Sometimes it takes, some people time to get used to something and be confident in it, because when you're on this continuum and you're slowly, if you do it, slower, you begin to see your children pick up and learn and grow in the areas that you dropped. It gives you more confidence to drop yet another thing, right? And when I say drop, that doesn't mean, they're never going to learn this. It means you're dropping the checklist, the expectation, or the curriculum that you're using for a particular topic. Because if we be honest with ourselves, life is not divided into topics, right? Life is life. All of it is meshed together, math and science. I'll give you an example. My son is studying music theory because he starts college next August in music production technology, I believe it's called. And he's really excited about it. But one of the gatekeeper classes, in order for him to be able to get into all of his major courses, is music theory. And when I first, gave him a playlist for it, he was horrified. Like, I have no idea what they're talking about. Well, he just started a job, and there's a couple kids on his job that play piano. And so they started talking to him about it, and then I got him a book about it, and I made another playlist about it that was a little simpler. And now he's like, oh, I get it. And then we were talking, he was like, this is math and science. Bing! So you could say, oh, he's not learning any math. Oh, really? And the fact that he could even pick that up, being an unschooler his entire life, he was able to pick up the fact that, wow, I'm doing multiple things within music here. And so when I say you're dropping something, it doesn't really mean that you're dropping it. It just means you're dropping those expectations and check boxes. But that they are learning it in a more natural, interest-led way that can be indirectly related to something else, or it can also come up later. When someone is interested in something, their heart and their mind is much more open to learning it when they have a purpose for it and when they are interested in it. I was writing in my very first book. There was a gentleman that did an experiment that with, I think it was a group of middle schoolers, and these were middle schoolers that were struggling in math. And he said that in 20 contact hours, that means 20 hours of actual teaching, he was able to teach every single elementary school topic. What? You mean our kids are spending 6 years learning what could be learned in 20 hours? That's less than a day. 24 hours in a day, right? But he said, I did this. And then that experiment was replicated in other places, to prove its validity. And it's possible. So the point is that they were ready. He had ways of teaching them that were outside of the box. And they all demonstrated the capability to do all of these types of things that people say it takes 6 years to learn between kindergarten and sixth grade or fifth grade. So just said all that to say, when your kids are ready to learn something, they will dive in and they will learn it. Case in point, while we're talking about math, because the reason why I'm spending so much time on math is because this is the topic that freaks people out, and this is one of the things that causes people to think that they cannot transition to unschooling, or they've tried it and it didn't work. This is usually the hang up, and so that's why I'm spending so much time on it, for those that are wondering. So I have 2 adult children and 4 teenagers right now. And we're revisiting a lot of math right now because I have kids that are going in, 4 different directions. And those directions call for different levels of math and different kinds of math. And so because of that, we know the direction that they're going. They know the direction that they're going. We have researched and understood what kind of skills are needed for that direction. We're revisiting those things, right? And so for a long time, we didn't. And I allowed them to pick up on things. They're learning things on their job. They're learning things in projects that they're doing or starting a business, and all these kinds of ways in which that they're learning very life applicable math. My youngest son, who wants to be a robotics engineer, actually desires to do algebra and geometry and algebra 2, and I'm fine with that. My other 3 teenagers, they went to algebra 1 and they were like, okay, I'm done, I don't want anything else. So we're just doing consumer math with everybody because everybody needs that, right? And that's just basically the math that you need for real life and just adulting, so to speak. But you determine what direction your kid is going and you give them what it is that they need for that road. So that's kind of how that looks later when they become teenagers and, about to launch into the next phase of their life. So number 1, it doesn't take forever to learn these concepts. And number 2, when they're ready and they see a purpose for it and they see themselves needing this, they will be open to learning it. And I've witnessed that 6 times over. And so you don't have to be afraid of that. And, I have lots of materials and videos and all kinds of stuff on unschooling teens. That's not what this video is about, but I kind of wanted to show you what that's like as they progress toward launching, into the world, doing what they love, from being a small child to being older kids, what math can look like, okay? So what about reading and writing? Hey, when a kid is passionate about something, they're going to want to read about it. And sometimes reading can look like reading online, right? We're so used to having a actual hard copy book, but a lot of reading is done online now. You probably would admit that a lot of your reading may be done online, depending upon the person. And so, and all reading counts. If they're reading, as long as it's appropriate and within your value system, that's my caveat, but if they are reading and their reading is progressing and their reading is getting more complex and the vocabulary is becoming more complex, you know that they're on the right track. How do you know that? I check in once in a while and I will tag team read with them. And I'll say, let's sit down. What are you reading right now? and I'll read a chapter with whatever book they're reading right now or whatever they choose to read with me at that moment, and just see where they're at, with their pronunciation and their understanding and things of that nature. And that shows me, that they're on track. Very few times have they not been. Writing's the same way. There are many different ways. And again, I have videos on that. I have books that talk about that. I'm not going to go into all of those individual topics, but I just want you to know all of your what ifs have an answer. A lot of people are like, what if I screw up my child? What if they need this? What if they need that? They are going to seek out the information that they need, and you're going to be there as a partner to provide the resources they need to learn it. So that's where you have to be confident, is that you are in tune to the point where what their needs are in the moment that they have those needs, that you will be there to help them learn what they need to learn, right? And get where they need to go. So have no fear. You are smarter and wiser and more observant than you give yourself credit for as a mom and a dad. So support. Let's talk about support. How do I get the support that I need when I'm transitioning to an unschooling or more interest-led learning homeschool? Okay, well, number one, I would suggest, and some people may disagree with this, if you are wanting to do something completely different than what you have been doing, then you might need to put a hold on subscribing to blogs and pages that are encouraging you to stay where you are and to do what you're doing. Said all that to say, it's the beginning of the school year. If you are bombarded by pages with people freaking out about what art curriculum to give their 2-year-old, then you need to get off that page. That's not supporting you. That's not helping you, go in the direction that you want to go to, right? So, saying all that to say, you need support that's going to help you and direct you in the direction that you want to move. We're here for any questions that you have in our group. Unschool Mom to Mom is an amazing resource. She has great products. I really love, and you're saying, why are you promoting her stuff? Because she's a colleague of mine and I love her materials, and she's solid and very helpful to thousands of families. And so, there are lots of unschooling blogs and videos on, YouTube and things of that nature. Doesn't mean you listen to everybody, but, determine, a good 5 people that you want to follow that are going to help you, encourage you, and, just inspire you along the journey that you are trying to head toward. But it's not going to help you if you're watching people that are losing their mind over college when their child is 5. Or, they're making all their kids do the same exact thing at the same exact time. Look, if you want to do something different, then you're going to have to look for support that is different. I have my resources on YouTube, on all social media. I am Carla, the Unschooling Mama, so you can find me on Instagram, my fan page on Facebook, and on YouTube. So you have those resources that are free to you. I have books that I have written, 3 books in particular. Homeschool Gone Wild, Teens Unleashed, and Unschool Yourself for Teens are specifically for unschooling families and their teens. You can avail yourself to those, and they're on sale until August 30th, so on Amazon, so you might want to catch that sale. And then I'm open to helping people. I do one-on-one consultations with families, just to help them set up the environment in their home that lends itself to interest-led learning, and also do consulting for families that are looking to do transcripts for their teens. So saying all that to say, there's a lot out there. I have resources. There are other people that have resources that are really great, encouraging and inspiring resources. So avail yourself to those. Find the right people to follow and content to engage in if you are wanting to do this. And so, with that being said, I hope that that information was very helpful. I'm going to review the 3 ways to transition smoothly. That is cold turkey, drop everything except negotiables. That's an option. And number 3, drop one thing at a time as you gain confidence. Those are 3 ways. And before doing any of that, you need to deschool. Deschool yourself mainly, and help your children transition to a different way of learning, a more natural way of learning. So that is it. I want to open up the floor for questions for anybody that has them. Let's see here. See, okay. Okay, I only see one question, but if you have any questions, put them in the box and I will attempt. Hopefully, I'll be able to see them all. Sometimes Facebook does weird things and doesn't show you them all. But I see one question. How do you know how long to deschool? Good question. Is there a shift in energy or some formula to use as a starting ballpark time frame? My child's been in preschool and in second year of public, and I've had 20 years of public schooling myself. Okay. Okay, so I didn't mention this because it's different for everybody, but I really would like to, I really would like to share a general consensus in the homeschool world. Deschooling, they usually say 1 month for every year your child has been in a traditional learning environment. So that could be if your child has been in public school or if your child has been in traditional homeschooling. Whatever you're doing and you're transitioning out of, however long your child has been in that environment, 1 month for every year. And so that could be different. Some people, I've known people to take a full year and they kind of go from deschooling and kind of morph into an unschooling because that's what naturally begins to happen when natural learning begins to happen. So it's not at a hard formula, D. It is actually when you are ready to pursue a new way of learning and growing with your kids, and you know that all of that stuff, that programming that you've had for so many years is out and your children are ready to pursue things, then you can begin to, you'll begin to see unschooling just naturally unfold. So it's not like a hard stop. Okay, I'm done deschooling. Deschooling is a lifetime process, to be honest. You're really just kind of starting that. It's kind of just pausing for the cause for a moment and deciding, hey, we have got to stop what we're doing and change direction here. And what ends up happening is that when you're focused on relationship during that period of time, when you're focused on reprogramming yourself, helping your kids just relax and release all of that tension from all of those requirements and standards that they've had to hold up to, you'll begin to see them naturally start to be curious and learn and grow naturally. You'll start seeing unschooling happening on its own. Okay, so I would say start with that hard formula, so to speak, 1 month for every year, and then give it some time to see if you're ready at that point. If not, just keep going. But for the parents' mind, deschooling never ends. Because those standards, if you spent 12 years, in a traditional learning environment, or if you went to college, got a couple degrees or whatever the situation is, you are programmed to think that learning looks one way and that certain standards are for every single person. And so it may be harder, and you might also have a child that is, that responds to accolades for their intellectual prowess or something like that. And so to help them transition into not needing that, but valuing what they're learning without feeling like they need a grade or a gold star for it, but just to enjoy the journey of learning and not need that. So there's so many dynamics that I can't necessarily say are going to work perfectly for you. My younger children, younger four, have never even been traditionally homeschooled. They've from jump have been unschooled. My older two were in public school for a very short period of time, and then traditionally schooled for about 3 years, homeschooled before we transitioned. So, how I had to approach it with the younger four, it was just living. From when they were 6 years old to now, we're just living, and learning has just happened as we lived. Whereas the older two had to figure out what was different from what we did before, so it was a little harder. I hope that answered that question for you. I hate to be vague. It's just that it works differently with every family. But the general consensus is 1 month for every year that they've been in a traditional environment, whether that's public or traditional homeschool. Any more questions? I'm not seeing any more questions. I'm not quite sure why. Let me see. Okay. Well, I am not going to prolong this if no one else has any questions. I hope that this was inspirational to you. I hope that you felt more comfortable in pursuing it if you hadn't before, or just even giving you more confidence in the road as you travel down this path, and more interest-led unschooling way of doing things. I will say this, for those that wrote questions and Facebook is hiding them from me, and for those that add questions as they rewatch this video, feel free to put those questions there. If you watch this video after the live is done, put your questions and I will go back over the next couple days and I will answer them, just in case I miss them. Because unfortunately I am not seeing any of the other ones, and I apologize. I'm not sure why. But your question will get answered no matter what it is. I will answer it in the comment section over the next couple of days for you and give you some ideas and encouragement and inspiration, because that's what I love to do. So meet me back here next Thursday and the following Thursday for our next 2 lives. Same format. I will basically share some tips and encouragement on that particular topic, and then we will do a 15 minutes worth of questions if you have them. And just know that my resources, my YouTube channel, my books, my social media, my consulting is all at your disposal. You can always contact me either on my website or through DM here on Facebook. So thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you have an amazing evening, and I hope that you just soak this up and that it helps you on your unschooling journey.